Hello everybody, this is VoiceOvaGuy. I haven't really been making many videos lately because, well, my trusty microphone decided to take a tumble onto my laptop and, well, my hard drive didn't take kindly to that, decided it didn't really feel like working anymore, so now I'm stuck with, well, I was stuck with a laptop that didn't have a hard drive in it so much. So I got a new one of those, reinstalled Windows, got all my programming stuff back and my recording stuff, and now I'm set to go. And I actually had a request from Mr. Cardboard38 called Raging Storm that I am going to be reading right now. It was the first request that somebody asked me to do that I actually liked a lot. You know, most of the requests I get aren't so great in my opinion, so I decided not to read them, just because I don't think you guys will like it, and if I don't like it, I don't really feel like reading it. But this was a good one, so here I go. This is not a personal tale, but a public warning. Ever since the release of the original 3 games, I've always been a major fan of the Pokemon franchise. I've played just about every game and many ROM hacks as well. I even managed to track down some of the more frightening ones such as Lost Silver and Escape Lavender Town, but nothing could have prepared me for that day 2 years ago. I had been putting Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Red Rescue Team videos on my YouTube channel, and I believe at that point I was also doing Pokemon Gold. One day, about the middle of summer, I got mail from somebody I assumed was a fan of the channel. However, when I opened the envelope, there was no card, no note, nothing to explain any kind of motive for sending the mail or what the envelope actually contained. I looked inside and found a yellow Game Boy Advance cartridge. I put the envelope down, and that's when I noticed the piece of paper on the floor. Knowing me, it probably fell out without me even noticing it. Unfolding it, I sat down at my computer desk where my DS was at the time and read, Pokemon Lightning Yellow. A friend of mine gave me this and told me it was supposed to be like the fire red and leaf green version of the original Yellow. I haven't played it yet, but I want you to have it anyway. Maybe you can do videos on it when you're finished with your other games. I knew right then that it had to be a hack. I mean, there's no way a remake for Yellow could have been out without me knowing, either through my magazine subscription, the internet, or from someone else. However, it was still a cool concept, and I was really hoping that I'd get to see my Pikachu following me around in the glorious remade graphics. Not wanting to waste a moment, I yanked whatever game was already in the GBA slot out of my DS and put in the new game. The startup screen was nothing new. Same Game Freak logo, same intro movie as Fire Red and Leaf Green, everything was the same. Well, it was the same until I got to the actual title screen. Whereas in the original game, you'd see Pikachu's big, adorable face in the screen, there was just a big, black silhouette of Pikachu instead. Not only that, but the title didn't say Lightning Yellow, it said Raging Storm. That's not weird or anything, I told myself. I had an odd habit of talking to myself whenever I felt a shiver go down my spine. The shiver was a sign that something bad was about to happen. I first noticed it when a friend of mine tried to stand on a swivel chair, but that's a story for another day. Anyway, I pressed start to start up the game, and already the creepiness began. In the original Yellow, you'd hear a cute little whenever you press start on the title screen. What I heard was a garbled, low-pitched, and slow. Now, for those who don't know, I'm such a coward I can barely keep calm playing Half-Life. This already was throwing up red flags in my head, but I decided to keep going, thinking it was merely a glitch or a hacking error. I noticed that there was a continue option on the startup screen as well. Being the curious George I am, I decided to start it up and see what the other person had. I assumed that the person the fan got the game from was the one that the file belonged to, since he said he had never played it before sending it to me. Like the other 2 games, I was greeted with a recap of the last play session. However, it wasn't like any other recap. First of all, it dragged on much longer than they normally do. Second, it wasn't Red whom was the center of the recap, rather it was Professor Oak. The whole recap had him walking in tall grass in various parts of Kanto, and it detailed his catching of the Pikachu. This confused me because I remember Oak catching Red's Pikachu merely moments before he attempts to walk through tall grass without a Pokemon. However, it didn't end with the capture. The screen faded to black, then faded back to Oak in his lab, with a Pikachu sprite sprawled out on the table where the 3 starters normally sat. There was no text detailing what was happening, and I couldn't think of any theories as to what was happening before I was thrust into the game. I wasn't even asked for a name, but when I opened the pause menu, I saw I was simply named Second. Not only that, but I noticed I was not Red, but instead the sprite I saw was an improved version of Lucas from Mother 3. Now this was more of a cool reference to a somewhat obscure game I was a fan of than something to be creeped out at. I checked the trainer card, and indeed it was an image of Lucas rather than Red on the card as well. However, something on the card surprised me. Rather than showing how long I had been playing for, the time was at 2 hours and 46 minutes. I didn't make a connection then, but I soon would. So I did the standard thing and stepped outside after getting my potion from the PC, and like every first generation game, Oak stopped me just before I got into the grass. "Second, don't go into the tall grass without a Pokemon. That's stupid!" The bluntness caught me off guard, as I don't recall the word stupid being said by anyone who wasn't an enemy trainer in any games. He led me into his lab where, of course, there were no Pokemon to give me. Unfortunately, I haven't had any time to go and find new starters, so take this one that has been hanging around the lab for a while. And there it was. My Pikachu, in all its glory, was standing behind me like the original game. I tried talking to Oak, but all he said was, "Not much longer now." I assumed he meant that his parcel would be at the Martin Viridian City soon, so I took my leave and went close to the grass. I didn't even notice that there was no rival barging in and getting mad, then challenging me to a battle. I checked my trainer card again to see if that odd time issue was still going on, and now it said 2 hours and 30 minutes. It was counting down to something, but I assumed it simply to be another hacking issue. Hacks aren't easy to make, you know. So after exiting that menu, I went to my Pokemon to check out my Pikachu. It didn't look any different from a normal Pikachu sprite, but checking its stats, the sprite there was not the normal happy Pikachu I was used to. Rather, it was just standing there, ears lowered, eyes empty, and stitches in its head going from one ear to the other. I was also puzzled by its posture. It was bent in such a way that I couldn't see its mouth. Furthermore, I heard no cry when I opened the stat menu. I simply exited, not wishing to investigate any further. I exited both the party and the pause menu and turned to talk to my Pikachu. I nearly had a heart attack when I saw the massive, sharp-toothed grin, stitches and scar on its head, empty eyes, and heard that same horrifying cry that played in the title menu. Now I was sure the sound was intentional. I tried to exit with the A-B select start combo, but a strange message popped up. "You can't leave now. It's already begun." So against my better judgment, I decided to keep playing and just not talk to Pikachu. So after a few minutes, I finally had a random encounter in the grass. Standard Rattata, nothing special. However, when I got to look at Pikachu's back sprite, I noticed a skull and crossbones on the back of its head, and its attacks were also strange. Despite being level 5, it already had Thunder. It also had Thunderbolt, Iron Tail, and something disturbing. Orders. I tried using this move, but the text box I got said, "This is not for you to use." So I chose Thunder just for fun. However, rather than simply getting "Pikachu used Thunder," the text display was "Pikachu used Thunder" and smiled as its enemy was relentlessly shocked to death. At this point, there was no doubt that this game was a prank. However, I was determined not to give in and let whoever had sent me this have the satisfaction of winning. I told myself I would beat this game and send it back with the completed save file, since there were no badges and Pikachu was the only thing in the Pokédex which magically appeared in my pause menu. After getting to Viridian City and going into the mart, I was greeted with the usual, "Hey, Oak's parcel just arrived, would you mind taking it to him?" But that wasn't it. A chill ran up my spine again with his closing words, "Beat the clock. Don't let it hit 0. I tried to simply shrug it off and not let myself get scared. I made my way back to Oak's to give him the package. He took it without a word, until I was almost at the door. Not much longer. Well, there goes my parcel theory. After a bit of thinking, I opened my trainer card again. 1 hour and 57 minutes. I finally realized that Oak was talking about the timer. I began to dread the events that would unfold once it reached 0, but the action was actually interrupted by dinner time. I'm not kidding. So, luckily the game did let me save, so I saved and turned the game off, and finally got a chance to calm down with some chicken and rice. However, the rest didn't last long, as after a little while in front of the TV, I started up the game again. I actually turned off the volume when I got to the title screen and pressed start, then turned it back up. Checking the timer, I almost froze when I saw that not only had it been going down while the game was off, I had 6 minutes left. I pretty much accepted that there was no way to stop it, so I walked around for a bit until the timer hit 0. I kept walking, but Pikachu stopped. I tried to continue on, but Second stopped on the tile that would move Pikachu off the screen and said, "I can't leave him behind," so I went to go get him. What happened nearly gave me a heart attack. Yet again, that freaky distorted cry first, and then I get into a random battle. However, there is no opponent, and rather than the Lucas back sprite, it's Pikachu's. Not only that, but Pikachu turned around with an even more terrifying look than before. Its eyes were totally black with what looked like blood dripping from them. The stitch in its head opened up, and its mouth was open with what looked like a massive laugh revealing large, sharp fangs. Now, instead of a Pokemon cry, I heard what sounded like a terrible high-pitched the Game Boy Advance could render. The sprite zoomed out, and then Oak appeared behind Pikachu with the same empty, bleeding eyes and a similar but closed-mouthed grin. Then a text box. I can't get him, but I can take what he left. Blue used orders. Then Pikachu got closer and closer and closer until it was just that awful face in the screen, then silence. For almost a whole minute, silence. And then his entire sprite went photo negative with a blood-curdling screech as the screen faded to black. It all made sense. Second was the second Red, his son, and this Professor Oak was actually Blue as an old man. He was out to get revenge on his old rival for all his defeats, but apparently being unable to reach him, instead settled for the next best thing, killing his child. Now the game didn't have any extreme effects on me like making me sick or me wanting to commit suicide, but it did have an effect. Something like that face is something you don't forget. It haunts you, makes you paranoid. I was honestly too afraid to leave the house without somebody with me for weeks. I couldn't sleep, not because of nightmares, but because I kept seeing that face, hearing that cry, that laugh, and then the ending. It just sent chills up my spine, unlike anything I've felt. Now I didn't just conveniently lose the cartridge. I got rid of it. Threw it in a burn barrel in hopes that it would be destroyed. The remains of it may still be there, melted, or at least unusable. Even after 2 years, it still freaks me out. However, I've finally been able to push it out of my head with the relaxation and comfort I found in something full of irony, playing the original Yellow. Seeing my bright, happy Pikachu helps me to remember that the terrible, evil Pikachu was a fabrication of an insane Gary Oak, hellbent on revenge. But this is a warning to all of you. If something scares you, stop before it gets worse. It will scar you as it did me.